Before God and my family, I'm announcing that I'm running for President of the United States of America.
Former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence announced on Wednesday that he will challenge his former boss, Donald Trump, for the Republican presidential nomination.
Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of Viral. I'm your host as always, Kendrick Dix here. Glad you can join us here on Viral to talk about former Vice President Mike Pence has now entered the presidential race. We'll get there in a minute, but first thing first, join in the conversation using the hashtag Viral here on Connect. And don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe if you can. Tell a friend, call a friend, hit that subscribe button so you won't miss a thing here on Viral. We can talk about former Vice President Mike Pence has announced that he's entering the presidential race. Mike Pence announced that he's running for president, and he wants your support. He wants to remind some Americans that he was the one that tried to put a stop to the January 6th riots after President Trump had issued him to stop the account to help them retain their power. Mike Pence claims that he did it because the Constitution told him to do so, because they lost against the Biden-Harris campaign. You know, Donald Trump wasn't happy that day and had to take his frustrations out on Pence. He even called him Pence to have death threats and stuff. But thus the former VP has a solid chance to defeat his boss, Trump, who could be the potential nominee of the Republican lead down the road. It's going to be a tough battle for Mike Pence, but we'll see. Let's take a look when he announced on his campaign ad and slogan on he's running. Take a look.
That's why today, before God and my family, I'm announcing that I'm running for President of the United States of America.
Former U.S. Vice President Mike Pence announced on Wednesday that he will challenge his former boss, Donald Trump, for the Republican presidential nomination.
January 6th was a tragic day in the life of our nation.
Once a Trump loyalist, Pence blasted the former president for his role in the 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol.
President Trump's words were reckless. They endangered my family and everyone at the Capitol. But the American people deserve to know that on that day, President Trump also demanded that I choose between him and the Constitution. Now voters will be faced with the same choice. I chose the Constitution, and I always will.
Pence's speech in the early voting state of Iowa marked his most forceful condemnation to date of Trump's part in the Capitol riot, when his former running mate was trying to overturn his 2020 election defeat to Democratic President Joe Biden.
I believe that anyone who puts themselves over the Constitution should never be President of the United States. And anyone who asks someone else to put them over the Constitution should never be President of the United States again.
Many of Trump's diehard supporters view Pence's refusal to overturn the election result as treachery. Pence, who served as governor of Indiana and is a former congressman, still embraces many of Trump's policies, while portraying himself as an even-keeled and consensus-oriented.
Well, that didn't stop there for Mike Pence. Mike Pence was all over the rounds, making his rounds. He even went to CNN, do that town hall meeting, and Mike Pence did the town hall meeting, talked about January 6th riots, his former boss Donald Trump, and other stuff that's going on. Let's take a look.
Sir, on that, Donald Trump says he is, quote, inclined to pardon many members of the mob who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Those people were, of course, part of the same mob who built gallows and chanted about wanting to hang you. Would you consider pardoning any of them?
You know, on the day of January 6th, I issued a tweet demanding that people leave the Capitol and end the violence. And I said that those that failed to do that should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And I continue to believe that today. We cannot ever allow what happened on January 6th to happen again in the heart of our democracy. And I'll stand by the decisions and the due process of court in our laws. And I have no interest or no intention.
About expediting the processing of people who engage in mass shootings. A lot of people who are mass shooters, They go in with the intention to die. So how would the threat of execution be a deterrent?
Well, I follow these stories just as closely as you do. And of course, our years in the White House, we saw one tragedy after another. And I know we hear that, and we see evidence oftentimes in the aftermath that they went in without regard to whether they would survive. But I just believe in the deterrent of the law. And I believe perhaps if we made it clear, I mean, think about this. The Parkland shooter is going to spend the rest of his life in jail in Florida. And that's not justice.
Tonight, the Justice Department recently informed Donald Trump's legal team that he is a target of a federal investigation into possibly mishandling classified documents. I should say you were cleared last week in your own documents case. What's your reaction to the news about your former boss?
Well, let me say the handling of classified materials is a very serious matter. And that was why after the revelations at the president's residence and the revelations at the former president's residence, I took it upon myself to review our files. And we uncovered a small number of documents that had been inadvertently transferred to our residence in Indiana. I immediately informed the Department of Justice, and I'm grateful after our full cooperation that they concluded that it was an innocent mistake.
Cooperation. Do you see his case as different?
But let me say this. Look, I don't know the facts of the president's case. I don't know the facts of the former president's case. But what we've got to have in this country is equal treatment under the law. Dana, you may not know that. I mean, I was very troubled last summer when for the first time in history, there was a search warrant executed at the home of a former president of the United States. Surely, you know all the years I served on the Judiciary Committee. That's when you and I first met. There had to be dozens of ways that could have been handled other than that kind of behavior. I mean, when I informed the Department of Justice that we had classified materials potentially in our home, they were at my home. The FBI was on my front doorstep the next day.
But isn't
And what
the
we
difference...
found out was that when Joe Biden apparently alerted the Department of Justice, 80 days later,
But sir,
they showed up at his office. That's not equal treatment under the law.
Sir,
and we've got to end.
I understand you're talking about
system of
equal treatment, but the question is allegation that an investigation into obstruction, which you clearly did not do, if that is something that investigators see as possible, even enough potentially to indict the former president, do you think that that should go forward?
Well, I would hope not. I really would, Dana. I mean, there's several reasons for that. Number one is I think it would be terribly divisive to the country. I mean, at a time when the American people are hurting, I mean to tell you, families are struggling right now with record inflation. We have a crisis at our border, the likes of which we've never seen. We have a flood of fentanyl coming into every city, large and small, in this country that's killing young people every day. We have threats abroad, a crime wave in our cities. I think now more than ever, we ought to be finding ways we could actually come together.
Sir, we're going to get
and
to
this kind of action by the Department of Justice, I think, would only fuel further division in the country. And let me also say, I think it would also send a terrible message to the wider world. I mean, we're the emblem of democracy. We're the symbol of justice in the world. And the serious matter, which has already happened once in New York, of indicting a former president of the United States, sends a terrible message to the world. I hope the DOJ thinks better of it and resolves these issues without an indictment.
Sir, I just want to clarify, what you're saying is that if they believe he committed a crime, they should not go forward with an indictment? You just talked before about committing to the rule of law.
Let me be clear that no one's above the law.
Okay.
But with regard to the unique circumstances here, look, I had no business having classified documents in my residence, and I took full responsibility for it. President Biden had no business having them in his residence from when he was vice president as well. And the same with former President Trump. But I would just hope that there would be a way for them to move forward without the dramatic and drastic and divisive step of indicting a former president of the United States. We've got to find a way to move our country forward and restore confidence in equal treatment under the law in this country.
Yep, Mike Pence trying to make his stance on what he believes and what he truly believes, his views, his opinions, his viewpoints on stuff that matter to the voters and could be crucial for this election. We can see Trump versus Pence. This is president or vice president taking on his former boss and a potential, Republican leader, nominee and stuff like that. But hey, well, have these debates on how they ran their administration together, but now they're gonna be on opposite ends. So it's gonna be really serious to see how this is gonna play out down the road. All right, let's hear what you people had to say. You people had a lot to say about Mike Pence running for president. Take a look.
Word of retreating from their abortion stance, but would this issue be a liability for Pence in a general election, assuming he got the Republican nomination? Voters came out overwhelmingly, as you know, to protect abortion rights in the midterm elections in 2022.
Wolf, I'm not sure I accept that premise. I think the reality is where Republican candidates are able to articulate their positions, even strongly pro-life positions in Georgia, in Ohio, in Texas, in Florida, they won decisively. I think the challenge is when Republicans are unclear about their message, I think that they struggle. And I think Mike Pence has always been clear that he believes life begins at conception and will always argue for the advancement of the sanctity of life. And so I think I recognize that it's a polarizing issue in our country. I'm not willing to accept premises that I think many have perpetrated that 2022, the losses were specific to the life issue. I think in most cases, the losses are really with candidates who are looking back to the 2020 election as opposed to looking forward. And so I don't accept the premise that that America is not a culture that wants to advance life and will support a candidate who champions that cause.
And the field just keeps growing bigger. So let's talk about it. Entering the race this week, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and former Vice President Mike Pence. Now, these two were once close allies to former President Donald Trump. Now they are running against him. And also expected to get into the race today, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. He's also calling for a new generation of leadership. But I've been out on the campaign trail. We're in New Hampshire right now. There is no candidate that is taking on Trump as directly as Chris Christie.
Years ago, you were entertained. I forgive you. But it ain't funny anymore. It is the last throes of a bitter, angry man who wants power back for himself.
Hey guys, I'm an ABC News reporter covering the
Talk a little bit about Mike Pence. The guy was an Indiana governor who got plucked for political reasons to be vice president with Donald Trump. And during all that time, the guy, for all that we can see, did absolutely nothing. There was no initiatives that he showed. Pretty much he aided and abetted Trump's lies. And it wasn't until he was forced through fear during the insurrection to actually do the right thing and stand up for the United States of America. But out in the lawn was a noose where Christian nationalists, ironically maybe, had plans to hang Mike Pence. Hang Mike Pence. They only wanted him to do the wrong thing. And so Mike Pence is in an impossible position. One, he claims to be a devout Christian. He's very much that in terms of the legalistic form. He has highly conservative values, at least conservative as defined by hyper-religiosity. He won't even trust himself to be alone in a room with a woman because that's too severe in a temptation. Now that is really sort of a sickness of mind, that you have so little self-control and so little ability to govern your own actions that you can't be alone in a room with a woman. Or is he afraid of the accusations more than the reality. In any case, it's the type of patriarchal fear that too many men throughout history have had of women. And that's the source of all the laws that were once designed to control women and present them as the other. All this uncleanness during menstruation that's in the Bible, and all the other types of controlling behavior written by Paul about how women shouldn't speak and they should wear coverings on their head. Pence is the kind of guy who loves to control women. And he also wants to be able to control men. He wants to be able to tell people how they should live and what they should do, whether they are Christian or not. He wants that kind of control. And therein lies the danger. He only really served as vice president under Trump for his own selfish reasons. He's not much better than Trump in that respect. He's a power grabber. He's a control freak. His face is scary sometimes because he has this look of, both combined of what's going on and what can I do? And that's the weird thing. It's not presidential. It is more residential. He just wants to be in positions of power. And that's the same kind of people that Jesus most despised. The religious authorities of his day were a bunch of Mike Pences, control freaks who wanted all the position and status of the world, couldn't handle temptation on their own, had to live by these tight laws and strictures in order to govern themselves, much less govern others. And that's the repression we least need in the United States of America. That's the oppression we least need in the United States of America. Yet there's 30 to 40% of Americans that abide in this kind of crap. And that is what we need to identify and realize. Pence is trying to leverage that repression into some sort of position in life. And he's the kind of guy that Jesus warned us about. He's the hypocrite. He's also the brood of vipers. Look at where he existed. In amongst the Trumpies, in amongst all that. And the only way he was able to do the right thing was being forced to it by fear. That's not a leader. That's a gutless individual.
Mike Pence running for president. Like I said, it's a catch 50-50. We have to wait and see how this is going to play out. I firmly believe that he might not have a chance. I don't know why he's running. He knows he's going to be eviscerated by Trump, and Trump's going to call him name calling and stuff. How Trump and him going to coexist during a debate when they used to be former running mates. It's going to be real crazy. But we're going to follow that, and we won't follow that. Whether it'll be on viral, be on the take, or now, or something, we're going to follow that and see how they're going to play out. Thank you all for watching this edition of Viral. Talk about former Vice President Mike Pence decides that he's entering the race to become the president. I've been your host, Kitty Dick, saying so long. Thank you for watching Viral.